world awakened to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I want to share with you an intriguing conversation with Shaman Durek. He's a sixth generation shaman, as well as the best selling author of Spirit Hacking. He's had a recurring role in the CBS television show The Doctors and been featured in media outlets around the globe, most recently for his marriage to Princess Martha Louise of Norway. Now, in this conversation, we're going to dive into how he would describe what we're going through in our current world as the blackout. We also hear about how he discovered his shamanic abilities at the age of 5, as well as how his death, not his near death, but his death at the age of 27 transformed his life. We also dive into all the different types of shamanism so that we can learn about that as well. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to the Awaken Magazine podcast, really encourage you to do that on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube. Click that subscribe button, leave a review, and hey, share it with a friend. There's a friend that you have in mind that would love this conversation. So share it with them. All right, let's dive into my conversation with Shaman Durek. It's great to be with you today. Thanks so much for taking time to hang with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for thinking of me, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So in your book, Spirit Hacking, and the subtitle is Shamanic Keys to Reclaim Your Personal Power, Transform Yourself, and Light Up the World, you describe what we're going through in this time period as the blackout. Can you tell me more about that? What does that mean to you?
Well, the blackout is a time when humanity comes into facing all of the energies that have been distorted throughout time and space that are coming up to the surface to be brought back into a field of love. But during that time, any time when there's a birthing of something, it's requiring people to generate more compassion, more patience, more acceptance, more love, and more understanding. And so any energies that are coming up right now are going to be very triggering for a lot of people, because the blackout is a time that we shamans and beings in the spirit world who have been communicating with the spirit world has been allotted to understand that the spirits are now coming in at a very high level frequency. So when you bring a high level frequency into a dense energy field, it actually starts creating this conundrum of chaos and everything that people fear. So everything from, abandonment, which is a form of separation, ideas of make you look at the things that you don't like. Because remember, a great portion of humanity is operating in this field of disillusionment. And the disillusionment aspect is the part where people quantify their reality based on their opinions, not based on their relationship with spirit. So everything that has been operating in opinion based on what people feel or ideas that they have that are not congruent with love and acceptance and compassion and forgiveness and all of these higher dimensional fields of shifting energies from its different dimensional ranges are being brought up for us to deal with. So to some, it will be very tumultuous. To others, it may feel very scary. To some people, they may see it as a joyous time. For me, I've been waiting for this time in evolution. And I've been looking forward to it since I was a kid, since the spirits first alerted me about this blackout period of where we have to really take responsibility for being these powerful creative sources of energy and learning that we're channeling energies every single day. And it's really about utilizing discernment, but utilizing the fields of love, of compassion, kindness, love, generosity, really creating sustenance and also longevity for our species. And that's what all this is about. And that's why everything is triggering people right now in the blackout, because it has to bring these old sentiments up to be resolved and healed.
Thanks for sharing that. Can you take us back to the time when you began to discover your own, I guess you would call them shamanic or psychic abilities, even at the age of 5? I've read about some of these experiences in your book, and they're just really both jaw-dropping and inspiring all at the same time. Take us back to those times, and what did you experience?
Well, what's interesting, it started when I was in my crib. And I started noticing that there are different types of beings showing up and staring at me from my crib. And I would tell my father and my mother that there's different people, different family members, and different types of tribal elders and so forth staring at me. But it was when I started getting older and I started getting like 5 years old, 6, 7, 8 years old. I never looked at it as I had a psychic ability. I never even knew what that meant. I didn't have any idea. Excuse me, I never had an idea about what supernatural ideas that were more present in the modern day terms. I was just a kid who was operating in its intelligence of what I felt and experienced and what I heard. And when I got into grade school, I started realizing that what I was experiencing wasn't what everyone was experiencing. Or some people experience some of it, but then they shut it down. And so I saw it more as people trying to run from their divine birthright versus embrace it. And so for me, being able to listen to spirits and see spirits and colors and feel things like chills up the back of my neck and all of these things was more present for me to explore than it was for me to deny. And so my abilities were always present and I never saw them as them being something wrong. And also because I grew up in a family that was relatively, one side of my family was very much in touch with our old African traditions and roots, and also in Yoruban culture, which is what my family's practice comes from. And then the other side of my family was Seventh-day Adventists. And so we were like, studying the Bible. And when I was reading a lot of the teachings of Christ, I noticed that throughout the stories of Christ, there's these awakenings that are taking place throughout the Bible. There's the speaking in tongues in the book of Acts, Jesus being able to communicate directly to spirit, to God, right? To his father, to the divine, which I always see as a mother and a father. Then there's the Holy Spirit, right? Which is all of these things are very beautiful awakenings of energy, awareness of God presence within you. And so I always was confused about why religion was utilizing parables and ideas throughout the Bible to stifle or to direct human consciousness or the development of our species as a whole, instead of remembering the teachings that Christ said, which is, you shall do greater things than I. Right. And so from there, I started studying both the shamanic aspects of my family's roots in African wisdom, and then also studying other forms of religion, not just Christianity, but also understanding Catholicism and Hinduism and Buddhism and all forms of philosophies and ideas of thought. And as a young kid, I was the type of kid that wasn't really interested in what other kids were doing. I was more interested in spending time with spirit and really honing my craft. And I used it as a form of craft because I realized that people were not acknowledging these beautiful birthright gifts that they have, these God-given gifts that they're already given. And I wanted to connect with those in a bigger way. So I spent a lot of time when spirits would talk to me at night in my room when I feel like a monster under my bed or in my closet. I would engage those things instead of run from them or go into fear about it. If the hair went up the back of my neck, I would say, okay, I'm present. I felt that. What is this? And then I would hear a voice tell me what it is. Or if something called my name, I would answer it and say, yes. Who are you? Where do you come from? What are you about? And what it did was it matured my abilities at a very young age. And so I started taking, clients at age 14. And in my dad's back of his house, I started seeing adults and supporting them and serving them and letting them know, what spirit was telling me about them and how I can nurture them to recognize their power. And one of the things that I always loved about religion was that it's to worship no all idols before me. And it was the idea that God is everything. And so I never looked at it as, oh, I'm Shaman Durek and I have all these powers and I'm this amazing person. I never looked at it that way. I always saw it as, I'm a servant of the light. I serve love. I serve kindness, compassion, understanding, forgiveness. And my role is not to glorify myself, but all the glory goes to God. And I'm just a vessel for God's light and energy to show up as me, as God is the vessel that shows up as you, as the tree and the flower and so forth. And through that experience at a young age, I started to travel when I got a little bit older to countries like Israel and Palestine and Turkey, and traveling and living in these countries, learning their languages and learning how to adapt to different cultures And why I was doing that was to understand their belief systems, the Torah, the Talmud, the Quran, getting into understanding why people believe what they believe and how does it affect them on an anthropological level and a sociological level. And then I started formatting that into ways to support people.
One of the things that you write about and talk about is this death experience. I hesitate to call it a near death experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make
Uh,
sense to me because I'm like, I died, I went to the other side, I came back. So if that's what they want to call near death, but that's not near death, it's death.
yeah, yeah. So I believe you were around 27. Is that correct when this happened?
In my late 20s, I have to look back exactly what date it was, but like late 20s, I believe, heading
Yeah.
into my 30s.
How did that experience, what happened in that experience, if you could describe it, and how did that impact your own shamanic journey?
Well, the way that it impacted my journey was, well, it kind of happened in sequences. So the first sequence was I was living in London. I met this guy who does hypnotherapy out of Greece. He invited me to Greece to come to do because I didn't really believe in hypnotherapy. So he wanted me to see like what he was doing. So I flew to Athens and got a chance. And when he put me under, which I didn't believe I was under, but supposedly I didn't think anything happened. And then he played this tape recorder when we used to actually have tape recorders. And the tape recorder had said it was my voice, but more soft and more gentle. And I was a woman in Delphi, and I was like, and I never knew anything about Delphi. I've never read anything about Delphi. I knew nothing about Delphi whatsoever. And so for him to experience that, his parents, he told his mom and dad, and then the next day they drove me to Delphi. And I remembered everything while I was there. And not only did I remember everything, I remember being this young woman who used to sit on this pedestal with the smoke coming up from this crevice. And I used to have these visions. And when I went there, I got there and I saw all these spirits, and it was like they were waiting for me to come there. And when I started talking to them, they told me of the things that were going to marry into the royal family. They told me that I was going to die a horrible death. They told me about the time frame when I would die. So that was like the first part. And then when I was in the jungles of Belize working with the shamans, I was with this medicine woman shaman, and she was putting the herbs on water and boiling the steam, and you look into the steam and then you read what the steam is showing. And she said to me, when you leave the jungle, you're going to die a horrible death. And I said, well, I don't want to die a horrible death, so how can I change it? And she said, you can't change it because you put it into motion already. You already made the decision. Every step, every choice you've made has led to this moment, and you'll know when it comes. So that was kind of like these leading up points. And I always had like people read my palms, or like, psychic readers would give me psychic readings, and they'd go like, oh my God, you're going to die, but you're going to come back. And, so it was very interesting. And then what happened was I had just got back from the jungle. I came to Los Angeles. I rented this tree house. I had a tree house, and I was in my tree house. And all of a sudden I woke up and there was a spirit in front of me, and it was like a spirit from the underworld. And the spirit said to me that it's come to put me through trials. So I was like, okay. And the moment I stood up, I could feel the spirit reach into my body, and I fell to the floor, and I started gasping, and I couldn't walk. And so I was crawling on my arms to the telephone and called my friend. And my friend came to pick me up. And when he put me in his car, my head smashed into the dashboard and I went into a rolling seizure. So he called the ambulance directly to come and get me from his car. And he took me to the hospital. And while I was in the ambulance, I remember coming out of one of my seizures, and I never had a seizure in my life. So I said, oh, this is interesting. This is what a seizure is like. And then the paramedics thought it was kind of funny that that's what came out of my mouth. And then he brought me on a stretcher with my friend by my side. And within like a couple of minutes or so, my friend looked at me and he was like, where did you just go? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you were talking to someone. And I saw this woman appear, and she was talking to me with all this love and telling me that I'm going to happen soon. And I looked at him, I started crying, and he's like, no, you're not going to die. I mean, you'll get a doctor. You're fine. You're overreacting. And I'm like, because my friend's very practical. I said, no, I'm really going to die. And I don't want to die alone. So can you just stay here with me while I go through this process? And within a couple of minutes, I felt knives stabbing all parts of my body. and all my organs started shutting down one by one, and I could feel the excruciating pain. And then all of a sudden, my lungs collapsed, and I stopped breathing. And then the people came, and I remember if they gave me a tracheotomy. I was out of it though, or they put something. I don't remember what it was. I just remember hearing them talking and saying that they're getting oxygen into me. And then I think they did like some kind of hole on my near my neck, and I started breathing a little bit better, but then it got worse. And then all of a sudden I saw all these beings around me, and they kind of lifted me out of my body like liquid. It was like water. It was so light, and all the pain stopped, and I was standing amongst all these beings, and I could hear the voices and the thoughts of everyone in the room, the doctors, the nurses. I could hear them panicking. I can hear them doing all the things they were, doing. I saw them trying to shock me, and I wasn't resuscitating. And my my I saw myself inside of my mom, and I saw my mom, and then I saw it through everyone's eyes and views. And I noticed that my dad wasn't there, which freaked him out later when I told him that I knew. And I saw all of these different things happening, and it led to everything I went through in life, and every person that I've ever hurt, and how it hurt them, and how they hurt someone because of it. And I saw the rippling effect of how we human beings affect life, and we don't even realize that we're affecting it just with a simple smile or a touch or a hug or a conversation, and how it echoes out through the universe. And I saw all of it, and then it all was shown to me through every point of view, and then it came back, and it was this feeling of acceptance. Like I saw these colors and energies spinning around, and it was this feeling of like, I'm okay with it. And then immediately I was back in the water, and I was swimming up to the surface, and I could see this bright shimmering light. And all of a sudden I was on a beach, and on this beach there was this woman in front of me, and she's smiling with this beautiful energy of love coming at me. And then she spoke, but it wasn't like with her mouth moving. She spoke in my consciousness, and she said, "What type of body would you like to have?" And immediately I said, in my consciousness responded immediately back to her as if it was like autopilot. And it said, "I want the body that I once had." And then all of a sudden I saw my hands, and I saw my beautiful skin, but I didn't feel bones or anything. And I didn't feel cold or any weird coldness. Like sometimes we feel sensations in our legs and our body and stuff. I didn't feel any of that. I felt just warm, comforting, like the most amazing energy you could ever imagine. It's like the best day you had in the sun without cooking yourself, almost where there's like a light breeze, but it's the best breeze. It's the best feeling. And then I looked up at the sky, and it was like making sounds. It was beautiful. And then I reached down to grab the sand, and it felt like these beautiful particles of memories of mine. And like I touched it and everything. And then she said to me, "I know you have a lot of questions. What would you like to start with?" And I was like, "Why do people suffer?" And she said, "Malfunction in thinking." I said, "Why do people have war on our planet?" She said, "Malfunction in thinking." I said, "Why do people go through so much pain?" And she's like, "Malfunction." Every time I asked a question about humanity, it was the same answer: malfunction in thinking. And then I asked, "What is malfunction in thinking?" And she said, "It's every time a human being thinks against who they truly are." And she said, "What you truly are is pure love. Anything that suggests you to think against that is malfunction in thinking." And so this is why people go through the suffering and the pain and everything, because their mind has been hijacked by information that is incorrect. And that information is not based in love. It's not based in kindness. It's not based in understanding that you and everyone else is the divine. So I was like, "Oh, okay." And it wasn't like a question of like trying to contemplate if it was being honest or not. It was just like everything was said. I was like, "Yeah, that's right." Like I knew that, And then she asked me if I wanted to go, or do I want to go to my own experience of what I believe this to be. And I said, "I want to go with my memories." And she said, "Well, if you go with your memories, you will always remember this place and remember an earth Earth is created by consciousness of different people's ideas and beliefs. And so you will see the suffering and the pain and even go through it yourself, and you'll still remember this place. And it's your choice to decide if you want to stay in the body or not. And so I said, so there's no like, I have to do this or anything. She says, there's never been anything like that. That's all created through the mind to create some form of structure that is created, but it's all based on what you want to do. And so I said, okay. And then we said goodbye to my family and friends. I walked back to this beach, but I not walked, but kind of glided because she asked me if I could just think about something. And I got to the beach and I saw all these people on the beach, and some were human, some were not. And there was these spinning lights in the water, and the waves were coming. And these beings that looked like these or something were walking us to the water. And we walked into the water. And then this light was like turning us into pure liquid. And we went flying through space. And I saw all these other planets and galaxies and like beautiful planets that had like 4 moons. It was like beautiful. And then all of a sudden, I ended up in front of Earth, and Earth was this vibrant, beautiful planet in front of me. And then all of a sudden, I started falling towards the Earth. And when I fell into the Earth, it was almost like my body was turning into light instead of liquid. Because at first I was moving through space like liquid, and then it turned into light. And then there were these ET, and they had like really big necks and really big eyes and very glowy, white, grayish, not glowy, not even say grayish, but it had like almost a fluorescent look with a little bit of gray in it. And their skin was moving like liquid. And they took my body out of light form and moved me into a different form. And then they started putting all of these lights around me. And I heard this high pitched sounds like, and then all of a sudden I was in a coma. And I remember standing at the side of my bed and like walking around the hospital. I could see everything that was going on, people visiting me, talking to me, but I was in a coma. And then when I came out of the coma, it was like this being that came, it was like an angel, and it took me back to my body, and it says, your body's ready for you to return to it. And so now you can go back into your body and feel safe. And when the moment I came back in my body, there were these dark beings in the room with me. And these dark beings told me, like, why did you come back here? Like, you can't help us. You should have just stayed home. And then this other being was there, and it was an angel, and the angel was glowing with all these like amoebic type wings that looked like eyes all over it. And it said, don't listen to what they tell you. We'll show you how to get your body, how to get back. But you have to
Hmm.
listen to every instruction we give you. And so that was,
My goodness. Durek, wow, that is quite a journey. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Talk to me about this whole idea, this concept of being a shaman, because oftentimes when people hear that word, they'll think, oh, it's somebody who serves medicine or ayahuasca or whatever it, might be. And I know you distinguish that in your book in terms of different types of shamanism. And so what does it mean to be a shaman? How does someone become a shaman? And what's the difference in the type of shamanism that you practice?
Right. So shamanism isn't something that's associated to tribal culture. A lot of people think you have to be born in a tribe in order to be a tribe is a tribe. The shamans are chosen in the tribe because there has to be someone who operates in the spiritual context of the evolutionary aspect of humanity. So shamans are, chosen by spirits. It's not something you become. It's something that your spirits and ancestors choose you, and you'll know when they choose you because they see in you a part of your being that's childlike and also open to their instruction. I think one of the most challenging things for people is that they go into this idea that shamanism itself is working with plant medicine. That doesn't make you a shaman. If you are working with a form of medicine, you either are an ayahuascadero, or you work with peyote, or you work with ibogaine, you are operating in earth shamanism. It doesn't mean you're a shaman. Earth shamanism, water shamanism, fire shamanism, air shamanism, and spirit shamanism is a certain way of dedicating yourself to an element. So the earth shamans are ones who dedicate themselves to the knowledge and study of everything that has to do with the earth. And that means like the patterns of earth, the weather, the plants and what they do, what is poisonous, what is not poisonous, what type of effects, how much you should actually give someone and so forth. And what is the dieta, what is the thing that your body needs in order to be able to facilitate that type of medicine. But to be a shaman is a different level of understanding, because to be a shaman, you have to be willing to listen to spirit and override what the mundane world wants you. It requires a certain level of dedication, or should I say respect would be the better word. They want me to say respect. Respect is the better word, because a lot of people don't respect spirits. They don't respect the trees. They don't respect the flowers. They don't respect the nature spirits. They don't respect the old spirits that require sacrifice on the earth. For instance, people don't realize that earth is our spirits that are called balancing spirits. And these spirits require a life in exchange for life. So they might create a tsunami, and that tsunami takes out 1,000 people or 100,000 people. That's what spirit required for those other people to live. So there's a balancing that takes place. And a lot of people, when they think about shamanism, they only see it in a very 3D view. They don't understand the quantum levels of what shamanism really means. The level of respect is that when a spirit talks to me, I don't go like, oh, did I make that up? Is that true? No, I hear you. Okay. And then what is your counsel? And the spirit will give me its counsel. And I say, okay. And if I take your counsel, what will happen for me? And then they tell me. And if I don't take your counsel, what will happen? Okay, great. And if I talk to beings in the underworld, why are you causing cancer for this person? And the underworld beings will tell me, because they are not acknowledging that they've been holding on to anger. They think the world is against them. They think this, they think that. So I talk to all dimensional fields. In shamanism, there is no separation. The difference is, what element are you mostly, pre-designed to speak, to connect with? Some people are moving more towards the shamanic ways of earth. So they study plant medicines, they study botany, they study agriculture, they study all of these different ways in which plants and trees and flowers and all that have spirits that help you to recognize yourself and remember yourself. Then there's water shamans, like you find in Bali and Hawaii, and different people where they submerge you in water, or they know the languaging of how to communicate to water because they've spent a lot of time with the water spirits. So they can ask the water spirits to make things happen to the water. So when they dump it on you or submerge you in it, it creates this very intense experience. Then there's fire shamans who are more present with sun energy, fire energy, heat, Tamascals, fire ceremonies, sun ceremonies. They understand the fire. They are very keen to the jinn spirits, to the fire salamanders. They know what the fire spirit operates like, and they know how to respect the fire and so they know the teachings of the fire. So they follow those ways. And then there's air shamans are more governed towards singing songs, speaking in tongues. People call it light language. I stick to the original tone, which is speaking in tongues. Being able to play musical instruments that connect with certain frequencies in the body that allow certain spirits to come from the wind and from the air to clean out energies out of your body. And then, of course, there's spirit shamans, and spirit shamans like myself, we are chosen because we have deep respect for the spirits. So any spirit, it could be a tree spirit, a flower spirit, an organ, which is also a spirit, your guides, your ancestors, your spirit guides, your spirit helpers, other types of spirits on the planet that are affecting your life. We have connection to them. We don't differentiate and play hierarchies. We see everything as a part of the divine kingdom. And so therefore, we serve humanity based on how we can best support them to recognize their gifts. And spirit shamans are masters of frequency. So we learn how to move energies through people's bodies very quickly. We understand the dynamic capacities of merging different fields of energies, such as what an angel really is, what a spirit guide really is, what it really is, and how do they merge with your system to create what we call a compound energy frequency that supports you in your evolution, or supports you having healing abilities, or supports you being psychic, as we call it on earth, or supports you in your intuition. And so all of these different components. Now, to be a shaman is to be a steward to the ancestors and the spirits. That means that we don't make moves unless we talk to the Great Council. We hear what everyone in the Great Council has to say, and then we make a decision to serve the Great Council without serving our needs and our ideas of saving people or creating this kind of like, it's me and I'm the healer. No, it's never that. I'm not a healer. I am just a person who has a devotion. I'm here to serve the spirit.
Mhm.
And if the spirits tell me, like they did, go to Israel in the middle of a war. Then I said, okay, I didn't ask questions. That's what I do. It's
Mhm.
not a matter of analyzing them, because analyzation, again, comes from the distorted masculine mind that can only pull from past experiences. It's about embracing the feminine and masculine and child aspects of the human potential, and then expanding those awarenesses to be able to access other dimensional fields that the Great Council may ask me to integrate into.
Talk to me about one-on-one sessions that you do with individuals. I watched you at Conscious Life Expo. I just stood back. Your team was thinking I was like, some like undercover agent. I think they were like, "Can we help you?" I'm like, "I'm just watching. I love watching and seeing what's going to go down." I talked to your niece for quite a while.
Yeah, she's my
Uh,
manager. Yeah.
yeah, she's so great. She was so welcoming. Talk to me about these one-on-one sessions when someone meets with you, whether it's in person or Zoom. What happens? What could they expect? And what's happening with you during the process?
What they can expect is that I'm going to hold space for them to witness their powers. I'm not here to baby people. I'm not here to play games with your how do I call it? Your narratives that you create to make yourself right about whatever it is you want to be right about. I don't really care about any of those things. What I care about is what the Great Council says about you. And I refer that information to them. And usually people come with their ideas of what they desire. It becomes something that they never even thought they were going to experience. And so
Who's the Great Council, by the way, just
so
to
the
so I
great
clarify?
council is every being that serves God at its highest level of love. Right? It can be anyone from the angels to ascended masters to orishas. It could be beings from other galaxies that have learned how to evolve into only operating in the will of love. So it's only beings who support the great will of love. And then I also will speak to the underworld beings, and these are the ones that support you when you are denying your power, when you are scared of things, when you are choosing to hide from your power in the divine light. There's beings that serve the underworld, and their job is to perpetuate those things for you. So, like if you have a real issue with money and you look at money as something that's hard to create or whatever, then you will have beings from the underworld support you, because the beings that they don't believe in any of these things. They're here to hold the highest frequency of truth beaming into you at the highest level of your being that your being can withstand. So the level of love from them is so powerful that human beings don't allow all of that love to come in, because it literally implodes you, because it's so much love you don't even believe you could be loved at such a level. And so what they do is the Great Council finds ways to help you to facilitate that, to anchor that, merge with that, and to be able to believe in that both on your mind, your emotions, your body, and that little child in you, which is your soul. So the lower dimensional beings are there to support you in everything that is opposite of you recognizing your power. So if you're a person who's like, I'm afraid to get hurt, a lower dimensional being will come, because fear does not support the divine consciousness. So it's and we look at it as what is in alignment for your free will. The greatest gift you've been given is this free will. You get to decide what you channel. You can channel from the lower dimensional fields. It's up to you. There's no judgment from any of the beings in the higher council. There's no force or any expectation that God has of you, or any frustration that God may have of you. That's all been created by men and women on planet Earth to give God a human type of characteristic that God would judge you or punish you or do any of these things to you. No, we do that to ourselves with our own malfunction in thinking and our own display of distrust and non-alliance with the beings that want the best for us. So either align to God's will, which is God's divine plan for you to be happy, or you decide what you create that yourself and orchestrate it. And then you learn the pitfalls and the highs and lows of what choices you make and how those things play out in the realm of cause on what we call a dimensional level. So dimensional level meaning through the dimensional fields of consciousness, either it being a high dimensional field or a low dimensional field based upon where you set your energy. And I can always tell within the first 2 minutes when someone opens their mouth, like what dimension they're actually operating from, just by the language they use, the codes they use in their word structure, their body language, their eye dilation, the way they breathe. Everything tells me, oh, so this is what these are the dimensions that you play in. And then I can say, okay, let's get you to play in a different dimension and see what it feels like. And for some people, it's like swimming in a different pool of water, right? And so I teach you how to facilitate that so that you become a master of your own self and you become a leader within your own right. And that it's not based in I'm the shaman and I know everything, because I'm also swimming in different dimensions. And I think any person who's in the spiritual realm has to realize that a certain level of humility and humbleness must always be present so that we can always be available for new information that needs to be presented at any given time.
All right. I encourage people to check out your book, Spirit Hacking, and your latest book and deck, Alchemy Elementals. Alchemy Elementals, a tool for planetary healing. And of course, people can connect with you and your work. I guess I would say if people are just getting introduced to your work, they would encourage them to go.
I would remove the word work because I'm not here to work, and work is an act of slavery, and it comes from the word slavery. I'm for my service and love, and and my offerings, because for me it's about offering humanity an opportunity to take back their power and really utilize what that means for them on a soul level. And so one of the things that our family and I've created is called the Lit Vibe meditation app. And it's an activation app like no one has, because it has a community where everyone shares their gifts and does meetups and connects and feels a part of a family, where you can go on there and talk about something and you get like people from all over the world responding to you about what you talk about. And so it shares this deeper spiritual conversation of evolution. And also, if you do the activations, it awakens up parts of your spirit that I do in sessions with people, but they can do it in the app. And like we have a shadow part of the app, and people are raving about that and how much it's already shifted so much of people's energies. We have doctors on there, we have psychologists who share with a lot of their patients, and it's something that my family and I put a lot of love into. And so another thing they can do is go to shamandurek.com if they want to take classes that have never been presented to most people in the world. If they want to get involved, there's a 30 days free training in shamanism. So you have 30 days. You start off in the first of the month and you do 30 days every day, a new training in shamanism. That's for free on the website. And I also have a podcast called Ancient Wisdom Today, where I do solos and I also bring on guests. And it's just exciting to be able to have offerings to show people how to increase their gifts and their abilities that are their natural birthright, and to see the profound nature of humanity unfold itself in the blackout at the time where light is really challenging to bring up all these old energies to be brought back into love. So yeah, I'm just really happy to be a servant to God and to support humanity at their greatest level of transformation.
Shamandurek.com. Instagram is Shaman Durek. Durek, it's great to meet you. Great to be with you. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, your story, and your service with us. Appreciate that.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for thinking of me, and thank you for having me. And I love you and I'm grateful. Thank you.